So the antidote to that is when your grandson calls you and says, I need $5,000, Grandpa, say, okay, grandson, what is our code?
Yeah.
And let's say the grandson's name is Dave, and we call him Davy Doodle. You know, Davy Doodle is the nickname. So I would say to my grandson, the nickname, when you call me and you ask for something, you've got to give me your code. And the code is Davy Doodle. So when I get a call, then I ask him, what's the code?
Welcome to the Carolina Senior Talk Podcast, your trusted source for all things related to senior living in the Carolinas. In each episode, we'll guide you through the best locations, offer advice on buying a home, and share tips on relocating within this beautiful region. Whether you're exploring new senior communities, considering a move, or looking to invest in your current dream home, we've got you covered. So sit back, relax, and get ready to discover everything you need to know about senior living in the Carolinas. Well, hello there, folks. Welcome again to another podcast of CarolinaSeniorTalk.com, where we talk all things senior. Today's topic is very interesting in that it is unfortunately a topic that happens to us seniors, and that is identity theft. Just last week, coincidentally, I was talking to somebody who, very kind lady, and she shared with me that she had had somebody reverse engineer her phone only to find out she had all kinds of issues and that had occurred 3 years before, and here she is still grappling with these issues. Very kind, very honest as the day is long. Nonetheless, she had become the victim of identity theft, and so it can be very devastating. So toward this end, we have a wonderful guest, Jim Hughes. He is president and founder of a company called Business Risk Solutions, and his title is Certified Identity Theft Risk Management Specialist. That is a mouthful, but clearly this gentleman knows what he's doing. Welcome to the podcast, Jim.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be on the podcast with you, and thank you for having me.
So, in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about Business Risk Solutions. What do you do, and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I'm a risk manager, have been for the last 40 plus years. And when I sold my fifth company 20 years ago, I decided, I retired for about 15 minutes and said, this is not for me, and started my sixth company. And I thought, what can I do to serve the public that brings value to the public that's current and a problem to help solve? And that was when identity theft was starting to raise its ugly head, becoming more and more visible, if you will, in the media. And so I started by speaking on identity theft, getting designations and certifications in identity theft, so I knew what was going on and how to further educate myself. And then those people that owned companies pulled me into cybersecurity, so I do identity theft awareness as well as cybersecurity training for people to help them avoid primarily three big mistakes that they make in protecting their personal and company's information. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it started. It all was instigated. The proximate cause of that new company was I was hit with ransomware on my computer in my office, and they wanted $300 in Bitcoins to get the files back. And that's what started me on my journey. And that is just a small example of what's actually occurred out there as far as ransomware and malware is concerned. But that instigated me to get started, and the rest was history. The deeper I got into it, the stronger my mission became. And then I started really focusing on seniors because I am one, and they have very little representation in the knowledge needed to protect themselves.
Well, I can't think of a topic more meaningful and valuable to our listeners than identity theft. So we're going to get into it. But before we do, I always put my guests through what I call the gauntlet. Just for fun, but it is pass fail, I have to warn you. So the pressure is on. Now, I understand you like movies. So
Yes.
we're going to hit you with a couple trivia questions. Let's just see how much knowledge you've retained over the years on some of these movies. All right. So I get to pick the question.
Okay.
All right. 1960, there was a famous movie called Psycho. And the question becomes, who was the director of the famous movie? A was Paul Greengrass. B, Alfred Hitchcock. C, Roman Polanski. And D, Orson Welles. What say you?
Well, I'm going to wiggle a little bit here and jump into what my gut tells me. And good old Profile on TV. If you remember that Profile on TV, Alfred Hitchcock.
You got it. Got it. He was
Stepped
known
into
as the
that
master
profile.
of suspense.
Oh, yes.
That if that wasn't one of his best, I don't know what else is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gosh.
All right. Another famous movie, famous actor, 1968 film. And the line was, "You finally really did it, you maniacs. You blew it up." Exclamation point, exclamation point. The choices are A, 2001 A Space Odyssey, B, Planet of the Apes, C, The Apartment, D, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. What say you?
Well, had I not had any help with this, I would have probably chosen the wrong one. But I think our Ben-Hur. Remember Ben-Hur? That was Charlton Heston.
There you go. So you
in the
got
Planet
my
of
bonus
the Apes.
question.
that was a big bonus to me because you gave me the information earlier.
But what was the movie? What was the movie?
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes it is. Yay,
Yay,
ding, ding, ding.
Yay, yay,
All right.
yay, yay.
All right, looks like we are going to be able to move forward with this podcast.
Good.
All right, so let's get into a little bit more of the meat of the podcast here, and so share with us your journey. How did you come from where you were to your focus on seniors in terms of educating and protecting their interest?
It was a gradual thing. It all started, as I said earlier, from a ransomware attack on my business computer.
Yeah.
But that was just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. That pulled me into the area. But after where I really got a good footing on, to answer your question on what brought me to seniors, is by speaking in front of them. I did an identity theft awareness, and I still do, an identity theft awareness workshop for senior living facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And the reports that I would get, the comments that I would get, the people who come up to me before or after my workshop and tell me what happened to them just filled in all of the blanks, gave me more strength in my mission to help them. And the more I got, the more I went out and learned. I educated myself. I got certifications and designations, if you will, in the field of cybersecurity and identity theft for the purpose of being able to drill down and then bring back up information and simplify it as much as possible so that you weren't considered a technoid, if putting people to sleep, and tell people how to protect themselves. So that's really what started the process. But every single speaking engagement I have seems to feed me more information, Dave, on what's going on right now, what to look for, what's happening. And the two primary areas that we'll talk about here is social engineering. And I also want to leave with a message on strong passwords. But that's an answer to your question. And the numbers, the data, tells it all. $37 billion in losses the last 5 years. It's nothing to sneeze at. And they're taking it from a lot of the money from our seniors.
Yes.
And that's my objective, is to try to help those seniors. If we can help one person on your call, on your podcast, Dave, avoid being scammed out of $5, $10, or $100,000, then we've done a good job.
I'd like to get into the detail of what your workshops look like. I know you like to lead off your workshops with some of the stories to make it a little bit more personal, how some of these people have been impacted. I think we need to hear that first.
Okay, well, first I'd like to frame, if you will, bookend this podcast and start with, for your listeners to frame in their mind, security is not convenient and convenience is not secure.
Mm.
Try to remember that phrase. Security is not convenient and convenience is not secure. Now, stories, I've got stories after stories of an 82-year-old couple in Chicago that ordered pizza, paid for it with PayPal. Next day, woke up, PayPal calling them on the phone. That's a red flag right there. Calling them on the phone and saying, we inadvertently deposited $14,000 into your PayPal account last night. We need the money back. We'll have the police at your door if you don't give us access to your computer right now. Bottom line is they convinced them through a social engineering technique, hitting on their emotions and their trust and the official and the officialness of their voice, etc., and took $14,000 out of their account and went straight to Thailand, and it was gone. You can't retrieve that. My pastor this last week started off his sermon by his introductions and then said, I was on the phone. I'm embarrassed to tell you this. This guy's a really bright guy too, Dave. He's a very intelligent, very educated person, which tells you something about this scamming world. And he says, I finally, after an hour on the phone with this person, I felt like he was trustworthy. I gave him access to my accounts. And they took thousands of dollars from him. And he says, I won't tell you how much it was. I will be able to survive, but the most embarrassing thing was to go home and tell my wife what had happened. Third example, real quick, is a 40-year-old woman contacts me by phone. I'm on Route 65 between Chicago and Nashville. I live in Nashville. And she says, I just lost this money. I can't believe I did this. She got a call. They said that it was the city clerk saying that you didn't show up for jury duty. And we sent a summons to you, 2 of them. You ignored them. There's a $2,500 fine for each of those. We can eliminate sending the police to your door, but you got to pay the fine now. They kept her on the phone. She drove to her bank, transferred $5,000 while she's on the phone in front of the banker to those scammers. As soon as they received it on their end, they came back and said, oh, we just found one more that's really, really old. One more. And it's a $10,000 fine. And the banker was standing there right in front of her and said, hang the phone up. It's a scam.
Yeah.
So that type of thing, these are current. This didn't happen 10 years ago, 5 years ago. This is happening now.
Yeah.
So that's the message that I want to convey in answer to your question, just a few of the stories.
So the level of sophistication of these bad actors is beyond the pale. I mean, it's just incredible how incremental and devious they are in their approach. A lot of people, like you said, a lot of smart people can be fooled by this. So in your workshop, what types of activities do you step people through, and how do you help in that respect?
Well, it's basically the intent is to convey the top scams that are going on, if you will, in the marketplace, to try to make sure that I can offset some of those right away, if you will. So I start with defining what is identity theft, so they understand what it is. And number 2 is then I cover the major identity theft scams that are occurring, whether it be phishing or whether it be a romance scam or just a pure out identity theft or breaking in through a social media pathway, if you will, to get to them. And then I do the do's and the don'ts of operating their devices, their cell phone, iPad, and desktop or laptop.
Well, that's valuable.
And because this is where it's all coming through. It's coming through these devices and causing some of the horrendous examples. I have to tell you about. I just had an example, a guy about 55 calls me yesterday, and he knows me, knows what I do, and he says, I thought about you. You're the first person I thought to call. My father has been sending money. My father is 75 years old, has been sending money to California to a woman that says she's on the Big Bang Theory television show. And now she wants me to sell the house, or my father to sell the house, send the money for the house, and then follow up by flying out to California and marrying her.
Oh my gosh.
See the red flags?
Yep.
All over the place. Red flags all over the place. And he's wanting to know, how can I stop my father from doing this? And the house is in his name. The only way to do that is a conservatorship in front of a judge so that you take total control of their finances. But that's a difficult process. And so the do's and don'ts are really, really important. And then I end with tips on what you can do to protect yourself. And believe it or not, being a Jimmy Upper as opposed to a Debbie Downer,
Yeah.
there are simple processes, simple ideas, simple practices, best practices to use to avoid being involved in a scam. And then I do a Q&A session. Boy, the Q&A sessions are as good as the workshop, because I get everything just comes out of the audiences of all the things that have happened to them, and I use those stories over and over again. But it's real.
Yeah, yeah. Once you've been a victim, is there any actions or that you can take? I mean, you mentioned one of them is that maybe halfway through this dialogue with the romance over in California, I mean, you can maybe put in a conservatorship, which is easier said than done. But are there other actions more immediate that people can take, or is it pretty much lost?
No. Your question's a really good question, Dave. Thank you. And that is, there's some simple things that we can do. For example, if you've had an identity theft, meaning they've gained your PII, personal identifiable information, that is the precursor to an identity theft. And if you get it fast enough done, you can protect yourself. I would put a freeze on all three of the credit bureaus. Now, everyone should know and keep in mind, identity theft, you cannot stop identity theft. The only thing you can do is react to it. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is quickly. And that's why it's so important to read the signs quickly so that you can take action. Number two that I would say to your response or to your question, Dave, is passwords. Passwords, people go to sleep when you hear the word password. Oh, everybody's talking about passwords. Everybody's talking about changing your passwords. Everybody's saying, do this, do that. And the bottom line is that password is your front door to your house. Your house has all your personal identifiable information. And so you want a strong front door. And that is real important to have. And I equate that analogy to a strong password, because a password is literally your protection when you go out into the wild, wild west, which is online, in the internet, or over any of your digital devices. And we'll talk about that. I think you want me to talk a little bit about that later on. But those are two things that are really important. Putting a freeze on your credit and changing your passwords. If you don't have an identity theft protection plan in place, you probably will never know when you've been involved in a data breach. And when you've been involved,
okay to get a plan like that even after the fact.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh yes. Okay. And the reason for that, Dave, is once you have your first identity theft, you're 4 times greater chance of having another one because they've got your information.
Oh, wow.
And they don't give it back. They go to the dark web and they sell your information when they're finished using it to another thief, another dark hat, as you call it.
It's not a one and done.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's sad, but the truth.
So prevention really is the best remedy of all this, and some of that you've already alluded to, and overlaps either before or after, but prior prevention actions really will keep you safer than the alternative. Talk a little bit more about that, if you would.
Yeah, I'd love to. And especially for us seniors. All seniors have children and grandchildren. And when they call for money because they are in jail in New York and we're in Nashville, you get nervous and you'll send them money. I had one guy here in Nashville, got a call, said his son said he was involved in an accident, hit a woman and she was pregnant. I'm in jail. I need $5,000 in cash now. And he went, believe it or not, went to his bank, got $5,000 in cash, put it in a FedEx envelope, and Federal Expressed it to New York City.
Oh my God!
Okay, just another example of what's going on a regular basis, and they get a hold of your emotions when they do that. So it is that type of scam is called social engineering. And that, if you will, I think is one of the most prevalent. That's where a lot of fraud occurs, starts from whether it's a phishing email on your computer or a phone call from the city clerk or a phone call from the IRS. I think to circle back around to answer the point that you wanted to make is what can we do? And one thing I want to say to every listener and remind you and I as well is don't give any information out over the phone to anyone, even if you think it's your son or your daughter or a relative or a friend, because with AI, artificial intelligence, I can literally find a picture of your grandson. If he is on the internet, I can duplicate his behaviors with AI. I can recreate his voice that sounds just like him if there's any voice information on the internet that he's using. And as a result of that, I can sound just like your grandson. So the antidote to that is when your grandson calls you and says, I need $5,000, Grandpa, say, okay, grandson, what is our code?
Yep.
And let's say the grandson's name is Dave, and we call him Davy Doodle. You know, Davy Doodle is the nickname. So I would say to my grandson, the nickname, when you call me and you ask for something, you've got to give me your code. And the code is Davy Doodle. So when I get a call, then I ask him, what's the code that we have?
Yep.
You're my grandson? What's the code?
Yep.
That's a quick, easy, inexpensive way of stopping the fraud. The other thing is I say to everyone, just make a new best practice. Don't give any information out over the phone, period. If you feel like you're forced to give personal information out of a phone to a medical facility, lie. Don't give your information. Give incorrect information.
So you mentioned that, security is not convenient and convenience is not security. Apply that to the simplest of all things theoretically, which is use of passwords. You had illustrated in a prior podcast that I listened to the significance of the number of digits that you have in a password. I just thought that was so amazing. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, in the world that we're in with computer programs, AI is a good example of that too. But with computer programs, I try to get across in every one of my presentations, including this podcast, and every podcast that I'm on, is you've got to have a strong password. And people say, well, okay, everybody tells me to change my passwords. I don't want to do that. It's a pain in the butt. I've got 30 different passwords that I put in my phone, which is a no-no. Anyway, so here's reality. I've got a computer program now that's out there in the market that if you have 10 numbers in your password, scramble them up any way you want, 10 numbers in your password, that computer program can break your password in 5 seconds.
That is amazing.
If you've got 8 characters in your password, mixing letters and numbers, mix them up any way you want, it takes that same computer program 35 days, and the thief will wait for that period of time. It's worth the wait, 35 days, to get your password, because then I've got access to all of your stuff. And so the important thing to understand is if you have 16 characters, now, no words, not your dog's name, not your mother's maiden name, not your wife's favorite pie, whatever the case may be.
Right.
16 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. No words. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to get this across because most everybody has words in their passwords. It takes that computer program 152,000 years to break that code. So,
That's
how many characters is a strong password? 16.
16, yeah.
I've got 22 characters in my bank password.
Wow.
Again, it's not convenient. And the second thing I want to mention to you, and you alluded to, you got right up next to it, Dave, is two-factor authentication. And this is where security is not convenient and convenient is not secure. When you go in and put your login, then your password, and you're trying to get into that particular account, whether it's a bank or Home Depot or Macy's or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You want to get in there quick, do your business, and get out because you got other things to do. The last thing you want to do is a third authentication. Two-factor authentication is a third way of protecting your interest. And what that does is two-factor authentication puts air in between you and the account you're trying to get into, whether it's a bank account, et cetera, because that company or that bank sends a 6-digit number via text message to you for you to put in as your third way of authenticating your login. Mm-hmm. And that gives the thieves can't catch that air, can't grab that in the air. So that's the reason. That's a couple of things that we do to try to help to mitigate the losses.
Simple things that we can do.
Yes.
You're making me feel better because I do a lot of two-factor authentication, and I also do long strings of passwords with no names.
Good. So yeah, good. Well, one last point on the two-factor authentication: the industry is talking about going to three-factor.
Oh wow!
Just as another line of defense. But
and I would be dishonest if I said it wasn't irritant every time I have to do it.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it's necessary. It is necessary. Yeah. Monitoring service. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, if you don't have today it's so inexpensive to have a monitoring service available to you and your family to monitor all your personal information, then you don't know when the truck hits you. And that is, if you have a data breach, you don't know it. Meaning if you're involved in a data breach. And most of the data breaches don't show up in the media, just the big, really big ones, like a large hospital chain like United Healthcare or whatever. Those will show up because they're such a big news, right? But the small companies that have a data breach, that have all of your personal information, including your 16-character password, that is why it's so important to have a monitoring service. And I use a company, I'm monitoring the companies out there that are providing this to make sure that I'm providing the most comprehensive coverage, the least expensive, the best reputation, a U.S.-based call center. I'm repeating myself there because that's an irritant in and of itself. Allstate Identity Protection I use, it's $10.95 a month for an individual and $18.95 for a full family, which includes your family, your parents, and your grandparents, if you have them over the age of 65, at no additional charge.
That is worth it.
You can cover yourself, your spouse, your children, your parents, and your grandparents for both spouses. I've got one account where there's 20 people covered under one family plan. because of that. But
you
so
clearly have a lot of information, and I feel like we've just tapped just the surface of what you are able to provide people. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you have available to the public. I think on your website you have access to, well, first of all, your book, and you have a gift that you're willing to give out, I believe.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I love to give out a gift, especially when it's of a helpful gift that they can use. And that is in your show notes. The listener should know we're going to put in, we'll put in my website, we'll put in a link to identity theft prevention tips for seniors. It's a 3-page document that highlights the most important identity thefts and what they are and how to prevent them from occurring with you. And then we also will put a couple of other links there for my book, if you will, The Digital War, with the subtitle the battlefield for our senior citizens' money.
Excellent.
And also, I'll put a couple of other links in there that are relative to what we're talking about that would be a benefit to your listeners. And again, all of it is free. And if they want to be on my newsletter, I send a newsletter out every Friday with just a tip. It's not a long newsletter. It's just basically a little tip to remind people not to do this and how to do that, etc., relevant to what's happening today. If you want to stay current on what's happening today, I send that out once a week, and you can send your email address to me via my email, which is we'll have in the show notes as well, or you can go in and get your gift, which requires you to put your first name and your email address, and you'll automatically get that newsletter as well. Did I answer your question, Dave?
Your website is businessrisksolutions.net?
Correct.
Okay. And your email is jim@businessrisksolutions.net. Pretty straightforward.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, can they call you also?
At 847-710-1030. Again, that's 847-710-1030, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. And I'll be happy to help. Just try to let me help you before it happens to you.
The help does not end here, folks. I mean, there's so much information that he can disseminate and share with you. And there's my administrative assistant barking in the background there. So reach out for the detail. We will post the email and the phone number later for edification. And Jim, thank you for this. This is such great information. Look forward to getting a copy of your book. I don't have that, so I'm gonna order one of those. And thank you again for taking the time to share what you have stored up here and with our audience.
Well, I love the opportunity here. I hope I've made a positive impact. And leaving on a positive note, just know you can defend yourself against all of these types of identity thefts we've talked about with a few best practices. And if you need any help with that, don't hesitate to send an email to me or call me, and I'll guide you in the right direction to help you with whatever you need done to protect yourself.
Excellent. Jim, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
Thank you for tuning in to the Carolina Senior Talk podcast. We hope you found today's episode both informative and helpful. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave us a review and share it with those who might benefit from our advice. If you or anyone you know is looking to buy, sell, or relocate to the Carolinas, or you simply want to know how much equity you have in your home, be sure to contact me at www.carolinaseniortalk.com. Until next time, we wish you the best on your senior living journey in the Carolinas. Thank you for listening once again, and talk to you soon.